What would you do if a tiny little girl, just 6 years old, walked into a bakery with nothing but a few dirty coins and a simple wish to blow out a birthday candle? Imagine the harsh rejection she faced until a stranger walked in and changed everything. But that was only the beginning. Behind that fragile smile was a story of silent pain, fierce courage, and a battle against a system determined to keep her invisible. What secrets haunted this little girl's past? How far would one man go to protect a child no one else saw? Stay with us as we uncover the extraordinary journey of Grace Miller and Jonathan Roumie, a story that will touch your heart and might just redefine the true meaning of family. The bitter winter air cut through the morning streets of Springfield, a cold that seemed to seep not only through the bones, but also into the heart of the city. In a modest bakery called Sweet Haven, a small sanctuary of warmth filled with the sweet scent of vanilla and cinnamon, a tiny figure hesitated at the door. Grace Miller, only 6 years old, was there. Her small body was wrapped in old, oversized clothes that barely shielded her from the biting cold. Her brown hair was tousled by the wind, and her big brown eyes carried a weight no child should bear. Clutching a few dirty coins in her trembling hand, she stepped inside, careful not to disturb the respectful silence of the early customers. With a whisper barely audible, she spoke to the baker, a burly man who barely lifted his eyes from the flour-covered counter. "Sir, today is my birthday," she murmured, her voice caught between hope and embarrassment. "I don't have money to buy a cake, but could I please blow out a candle and make a wish? I promise I won't bother anyone." Her words fell like fragile glass over the room. For a moment the air felt heavier. The baker narrowed his eyes impatiently, frowning. "This is a business, not a charity. If you can't pay, don't waste my time." Grace's hands clenched the coins tighter, her knuckles turning white. She lowered her head slowly, feeling the weight of rejection settle deep in her chest. Silence took over the bakery, muffling even the warmth from the ovens. Jonathan Roumie, known for portraying Jesus in the series The Chosen, was sitting at one of the tables. He had just left a meeting with a local charity. He wore a thick wool coat, showing signs of travel and volunteer work abroad. But at that moment, he wasn't an actor, nor a celebrity. He was just a man, moved by the scene he had just witnessed. Without hesitation, Jonathan stood up. He closed the notebook where he'd been jotting ideas for his next project on faith and humanity and walked to the counter. His voice cut through the silence. "I want a full strawberry cake. Now, please." The baker was confused by the sudden change in tone. Grace looked at him with wide eyes. The hum of the bakery disappeared. Everyone was watching this unlikely moment. "A whole cake, sir," repeated the baker in a more respectful tone. "Yes," Jonathan confirmed. "And 2 plates. We're sharing." Grace held her breath. A spark of surprise crossed her face. Was this real, or just another illusion in a world that had never been kind? She held on tightly to her coins, unsure whether to trust or retreat. The baker brought out a beautiful cake decorated with fresh strawberries and white frosting. The atmosphere in the bakery changed. Customers leaned in, curious. There before them, worlds collided. Jonathan knelt before Grace, his voice now soft. "Let's eat together. This cake is your birthday present." Tears welled in the girl's eyes, but she didn't cry. Instead, she studied Jonathan with the intensity of someone who had spent their life learning to doubt. You mean it," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Absolutely," he replied, smiling. "What's your name?" "Grace," she answered, her tiny hand touching his. "Grace," he repeated. "Happy birthday." When she blew out the single candle, the flickering flame reflected in her eyes like a beacon of hope. She made a silent wish, one she didn't dare to say out loud. For a moment, that bakery became a magical place. But behind the sweetness of the cake and the warmth of shared smiles, something else was awakening. For Jonathan Roumie, this wasn't just an act of kindness. It was the beginning of a new purpose, one that would challenge everything he thought he knew about fame, faith, family, and the true meaning of strength. Why was Grace so withdrawn? Why was she so wary of kindness? What scars were hidden behind those serious eyes? And how would that small gesture of compassion begin to tear down the walls of the world surrounding Jonathan? A world made of cameras, contracts, awards, and applause? What happens when the glamour of Hollywood collides with the fragile hope of a forgotten child? Can the action of one man change a life? Or were the lurking shadows strong enough to extinguish this fragile flame? If this story touched your heart, comment below. Tell us where you're watching from. Your voice matters. Together, let's follow the journey of Grace and Jonathan. Don't forget to like and share this story, because every act of kindness deserves to be heard. And you? How would you react if you were in Grace's place? Vulnerable, yet hopeful. Share your thoughts. Your story could inspire someone today. The faint glow of the birthday candle had barely faded when Jonathan Roumie found himself drawn into a world he never expected to know. A world hidden beneath the polished veneer of Los Angeles skyline. One where shadows stretched far beyond the city streets, and hope was a luxury few could afford. Leaving Sweet Haven Bakery, the fragile touch of Grace's hand lingered longer on Jonathan's skin than the cold winter air. That small, trembling grip unsettled the meticulous balance of his life. He was no stranger to public recognition. As an actor and respected figure for his role in The Chosen, Jonathan was accustomed to fans' affection and backstage respect. Yet something raw and unfiltered in Grace's reality awakened a long-forgotten part of his soul, a part that no professional success could ever fill. Back in his modest yet cozy apartment, surrounded by religious icons and soft lighting, Jonathan's mind replayed every detail. Grace's oversized jacket, the way her eyes sparkled with fierce determination despite so much vulnerability. The contrast between the orderly world he inhabited and the harsh reality she faced daily left him restless. Curiosity and compassion compelled him to delve deeper. In the following days, Jonathan roamed the forgotten outskirts of the city, neighborhoods where crumbling facades whispered stories of forgotten families and lost dreams. It was there he met Maggie Miller, Grace's grandmother. Maggie's tired eyes said much. She was fragile and ill, her breathing shallow, her hands trembling. The small, deteriorated house they lived in was a painful testimony to years of hardship. Walls marked by time, a stove barely functional, poverty ingrained in every corner. Jonathan watched closely. Despite her young age, Grace bore responsibilities no child should have. She sold wildflowers picked from abandoned lots, her small hands red from the cold. She tried to smile, but the weight of worry over Maggie's health and her uncertain future was deeply etched on her youthful face. Determined to help, Jonathan contacted an old acquaintance from the local Christian community doctor, James Collins, a respected doctor known for his volunteer work. The diagnosis was alarming. Maggie's condition was rapidly worsening. Pneumonia, aggravated by an untreated infection. Hospitalization was urgent, but the lack of legal documents for both complicated everything. The path ahead was full of obstacles. Then came another barrier. Clara Roumie, Jonathan's sister. Elegant, rational, always concerned about the family's reputation. Upon discovering Jonathan's involvement with Grace and Maggie, her reaction was fierce. "You're risking everything," Clara warned one cold night in Jonathan's office. "Your public image, your career, your name. Think about the headlines. You're a single man involved with a vulnerable child from a marginalized neighborhood. This is not only reckless, it's dangerous." Jonathan clenched his teeth. This isn't about image. It's about a girl and her grandmother who need help. But the world doesn't always understand kindness. The social assistance system proved cold and impersonal. Sarah Bennett, the social worker assigned to the case, viewed Jonathan's involvement with suspicion. To her, his gestures were not acts of love, but potential threats. "We have protocols," Sarah said firmly during a meeting. "Your relationship with Grace is unusual. We have to consider what's best for the child." The pressure mounted. Grace was taken from her grandmother's side and placed in an overcrowded shelter called Hope Haven. Far from the warmth of home, she faced a new hell. Fluorescent lights, cold metal bunk beds, and a symphony of crying and fear. Grace's innocent eyes, once full of hope, dimmed under the weight of loneliness. But the cruelest blow came from within the family itself. Clara, with her subtle manipulations, spread rumors and cast doubts about Jonathan's intentions. Whispers circulated. A famous actor involved with an unknown girl. The glow of recognition turned to shadow. Still, Grace remained a warrior. Her love for Maggie and faith in Jonathan's promise fueled a strength that defied her age. She refused to accept that the system could erase her family. She clung to the hope that love would one day overcome even the coldest walls. As Maggie's health worsened, Jonathan faced a growing battle not only against illness, but against a system blind and resistant to compassion. He invested resources in private medical care, hired lawyers, initiated a complex and exhausting legal action. He was willing to do anything to keep the promise he made to Grace. In quiet moments, he reflected on life's fragility. The contrast between his world, made of red carpets and interviews, and Grace's world forced him to confront uncomfortable truths about privilege, responsibility, and the real cost of caring. But behind the legal documents and hospital visits, one question haunted him. Why had Grace's family been so forgotten by the systems meant to protect them? How had they become invisible? And the most disturbing, who truly benefited from keeping them apart? These questions followed Jonathan as the stakes rose. But one thing was certain. He was not going to give up. And you? What would you do if you were in Jonathan Roumie's place, facing opposition from your own family and society while trying to do what is right? Share your thoughts and stories with us. Your voice may be the hope someone needs today. As the cold walls of bureaucracy closed in around Grace Miller and her grandmother Maggie, Jonathan Roumie found himself at the crossroads of the greatest battle of his life. The legal maze was more cruel than any obstacle he had faced in the entertainment industry, and the opposition more personal than any rejection he had ever experienced in his career. But this fight was different. It was driven by love for family and a justice that transcended fame or influence. The courtroom buzzed with tension as Jonathan's lawyer, David Carter, presented the case with unwavering clarity. Evidence of neglect and suffering laid bare the harsh reality Grace had endured. The judge listened attentively, absorbing every word, as sincere testimonies revealed the courage and resilience of a girl who refused to be broken. Across the room stood Claire Roumie, Jonathan's sister. Her expression was a mask of unyielding determination. She had mobilized all resources, spread whispered accusations, trying to portray Jonathan's involvement as reckless obsession. Yet with every word spoken by David Carter, and with each piece of evidence presented, the fragile facade Claire had built began to crumble. At the heart of the battle was something far deeper than legal documents, the undeniable bond that blossomed between Jonathan and Grace, a bond that defied blood ties and transcended boundaries set by rigid rules. Meanwhile, Maggie's health fluctuated between life and death, thanks to Jonathan's tireless efforts and the intervention of Dr. James Collins. She was slowly regaining strength, but the scars of neglect were deep. The small house, once filled with despair, now sheltered a fragile glimpse of hope, like soft light filtering through cracked windows. But the fight was far from over. One afternoon, just as Jonathan began to believe justice might prevail, a shocking revelation shook the case. A hidden truth emerged. The legal actions to remove Grace from her grandmother's care were motivated not by genuine concern, but by manipulations from those who felt threatened by Jonathan's involvement. It was Claire herself who orchestrated the accusations, using her influence to try to isolate her brother and control the family legacy. The courtroom was stunned when this betrayal came to light. The carefully constructed world Claire had built collapsed, exposing her cruelty masked by false family loyalty. Yet even amidst so much tension, the most powerful moments arose in silence, in Grace's bravery. In the face of uncertainty and fear, she stood up. Her voice was small but firm and clear as she spoke from the heart. "I want to stay with Jonathan," she said, her eyes shining with fierce determination. "He's my family now. He saved me when no one else did." The sound of the judge's gavel echoed through the courtroom, silencing the room. The weight of the decision was palpable. After hours of deliberation, the verdict was finally delivered. Jonathan was officially named Grace's legal guardian. A new chapter had begun, forged not by blood, but by love and unwavering commitment. The victory was bittersweet. Jonathan had sacrificed a great deal: his reputation, the trust of some close to him, and the comfort of his former life. But as he embraced Grace and Maggie, he knew it had all been worth it. Together they moved to a quiet town, far from the shadows of the courtroom and the pain. Grace blossomed in school, her laughter filling once silent hallways. Maggie found peace, surrounded by the warmth of a home full of dignity and care. And Jonathan, a man once consumed by expectations and external pressures, discovered a purpose far greater than any artistic achievement: the joy of family and the power of unconditional love. In the months that followed, Jonathan founded a charity to help invisible children like Grace, those who suffer in silence, forgotten by the system. His journey from artist to passionate advocate inspired thousands around the world, reminding everyone that true strength lies not in status, but in compassion. This is more than a story of struggle. It is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, a reminder that the smallest acts of kindness can transform the greatest battles into emotional triumphs. Do you believe that love can truly overcome institutional and societal barriers? The story of Grace Miller, Jonathan Roumie, and Maggie teaches us a powerful truth about humanity: the transformative power of compassion and the true meaning of family. It reminds us that family is not always defined by blood ties or legal documents, but by love, dedication, and the courage to stand by someone in their darkest moments. In a world where systems and societies often overlook the vulnerable, it takes courage to break through barriers of prejudice, bureaucracy, and fear. Jonathan's journey, from a reserved man to a fierce protector of Grace and Maggie, shows that empathy can awaken even the coldest hearts and inspire profound change. And Grace, with her bravery in the face of adversity, teaches us about the strength that resides in the human spirit, especially when nurtured by kindness, faith, and hope. Her story calls us to see beyond appearances and circumstances, to recognize the dignity in every person, no matter how invisible they may seem. Ultimately, this tale challenges us to question our own judgments and encourages us to act with kindness, courage, and love. It is a reminder that sometimes a single act of kindness can ripple outward and transform not just one life, but the course of many others. Jonathan Roumie, with a life marked by faith, compassion, and humility, inspires us to be light where there is darkness and a voice for those who cannot speak for themselves. By defending those who cannot defend themselves, we offer the greatest gift we can give: humanity. Please share your thoughts and feelings in the comments. We'd love to hear how this story touched you and how you see yourself in these characters. Also, let us know which country you're watching from. And don't forget to like and share this video, because stories like this deserve to be heard.